Well, thank you very much for hanging around. We are back live in the studio, and we have a guest with us again. We have Lauren Bostrom from Tripp Family Medicine.
Yes, thanks for having me again. This is my second week,
And
and
normally you guys go through a rotation, so you must have been a naughty girl and got stuck twice in a row.
it's true. They like to pick on me over there, so.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll try to make this as painless as possible. Lauren,
That's the doctor's line.
yeah. Yeah. I
Right.
sorry, I don't feel like going today. Lauren, get over there and take care of this for me.
Yeah, so last week you weren't here, but I talked a little bit about the most Googled medical terms, questions that people like to research.
Uh-huh.
So this week I'm going to talk a little bit about the top reasons that people come into the doctor's office and reasons that maybe you should even go in if you're feeling well too.
Okay. All right.
Great.
Because like most guys, we if unless we're really hurting or really sick, we're not going to come in.
We don't go.
Yes, and I do get kind of confused because occasionally I do get the guy who comes in and feeling well, and he's
Uh-huh.
actually establishing care, and
Oh. Okay.
then I later find out his wife made him come in. But
Yeah.
Usually it's a good wife behind
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
Yeah. And in fact, shame on me. As I went out the door this morning very early, I told my wife, I said, "Isn't it time for us to schedule our annual physical examinations?" Um, she will remind me when I get home.
right, um,
So yeah, I'm one of those kind of guys as well.
Okay.
So what are some of the reasons that we should be more proactive about taking care of our personal health situations?
so it is really, really important to have a medical home, and there's a lot of benefits that come with that. So if you're establishing care with a provider, that gives you a chance to build a relationship with that provider. They know your history. Um, so when you're actually sick, you're not coming in having to go through everything that has kind of happened to you in the past if you have some chronic medical conditions. The other thing too is if you do get sick, it's a lot easier for offices to be able to get you in as an established patient because usually there's a lot more time involved in establishing as a new patient because we are having to collect all that history.
Uh-huh.
So there's some benefit in kind of easier access to you. And if you have a whole family, the other nice part of that is you might have a kid with strep throat. There's a good chance that your provider might be able to help out the whole family if you all start coming down with
Right.
that strep throat and
Because
those
families like
symptoms.
to share, right?
They do,
Yeah, and that's one
and
of the things we seem to share an awful lot, don't we?
it is. It's so not uncommon for me to see one sibling and then not too long, a few days later, we have the other ones coming in, and soon the whole family is just looking like they're having a really, really great time at home.
But but like you said, you established that history. So as a family, you're saying, oh well, Timmy came in with strep last week, and oh Sarah's in this week. I said, okay, mom, dad, this is what we need to do for you, and you know the family.
Yeah, you know the family, and you know that chances are that Timmy also has strep, and pretty easy for us to be able to help you out and be able to get antibiotics started sooner than later
Okay.
as well. And I would like to mention kind of some of the top reasons that we have people coming in when they're sick is kind of our respiratory diseases, and we're
Hmm.
in that flu season. So
All
have you
right.
gotten your flu shot yet?
No.
Now, I do get my flu shot, but I always put it off until about the 1st of November so that it has more effect on the November, December, January time frame because the flu shots do have a lifespan and so I push it back in the fall, maybe too long, but that gives me a little bit more coverage through the winter and spring months. But I do have my flu shot. I had my polio shot. I don't remember 2 or 3 years ago. No, no, pneumonia shot.
I was
Sorry,
gonna say, I'm like,
pneumonia,
hopefully you had the polio sooner,
pneumonia,
but
pneumonia.
Yeah.
Do not get old. You can't remember what you're doing.
Right.
And now we're to the point where I think they're suggesting that most seniors give serious consideration to a shingles vaccination.
Yes,
Is
so
that right?
there is a shingles vaccine out there. It's called Shingrix is the newer one. There used to be, and there still is technically the Zostavax, which was a one-shot series, but they have come out with the Shingrix. It's a two-shot series, but more effective in
Okay.
protection too.
Now,
But it's only for folks over a certain age, right?
Over 60 right now. I
Oh,
mean,
I don't qualify.
You're too young, Steve.
Yeah, right. But those are the kinds of things that so often we fail to take into consideration. And the changes in the medical uh, community, we don't hear about them.
They change really, really quickly, from anywhere from what your blood pressure should be running at to how to manage cholesterol. And so it's kind of a rapid changing. And so that's a good reason to check in with your provider at least once a year, too, to be able to make sure that even though you might think that you're on track with your health, there might be some new changes and some new ways to further protect yourself, too.
Okay.
And that
Mhm.
happens as we get. Do we have a break?
Yeah, we have just a little break coming up, and
What, 1 minute?
no, it's happening now.
Oh, it's well,
So, sorry,
they
Steve.
do give me a clock that I'm supposed to look at so I can keep on track. The interesting thing is I don't know how to read it.
It's all right. We'll teach you here in the break.
Yep, we'll be right back. Lauren's got some more information for us about good health from Tripp Family Medicine. We're back. Thank you for staying with us. We think we have a caller. We're going to hit the button and see if they're still there. Good morning. Are you with us?
Good morning. Yes, I am still here, and I have a
Wonderful.
question
Yeah.
about repeated Zostamax or shingles vaccinations. I had a shingles vaccination about 8 or 9 years ago, and it was fortunate because last year I did contract a case of shingles, but it was a lot more severe, I am told, than it could have been. What would be the recommendation to take the newest vaccine?
So they are saying even if you've had the Sostavax, to still go get that newer one called the Shingrix. You still have some protection with that Sostavax, and as you mentioned, it doesn't protect you 100% from the shingles, but it often makes it less severe than that outbreak would have been without a vaccination. And kind of the same concept too with flu and the pneumonia vaccines that we have.
So is this shingles? Is this something I should consider on an annual schedule or biannual?
Right now, they would say once you did that Shingrix, you're updated until maybe they come up with the, I don't know what else they might call the next one they might develop, but
So it
right
should be
now,
good for an extended period of
yep,
time.
yep.
And the pneumonia thing is kind of in the same category.
So the pneumonia is a little bit more complicated.
Oh,
So
swell.
yeah,
I don't
so
do anything easy, do I?
so there are actually two pneumonia vaccines out there. One called the pneumococcal and one called the Prevnar. And that one is one that is kind of dependent on if you have a lot of comorbidity. So if you're diabetic, immunocompromised, they're going to recommend you start a pneumonia vaccine series when you're young, older than 18, and start a little bit younger. But if you're kind of a generally healthy person, they recommend starting vaccinations at 65 and older for the
You're okay,
pneumonia.
Steve.
And then there's two shots, so you have to space them out a little bit too and keep track of
Okay.
that one.
And,
Okay.
but the pneumonia things, you better plan on maybe every couple of years or every year.
A lot more to that story. So that is one. I mean, I would definitely consult with your provider about because it's very dependent on your medical history. If again you got it younger before 65, you do need to update it. After 65, you need the two shot series, and then you're generally good on that one.
Okay.
Mhm.
So get that thing scheduled.
Yeah.
Okay, so you
Yeah.
wanted to talk about some things,
Yeah, and
that you're feeling good, but you still should see the doctor.
Okay,
yes,
I'm in
yeah.
generally good health, but I should make it a point to see my doctor regularly because.
Yeah. So one thing that I see a lot of is we have patients coming in because they have an insurance form they need to fill out that maybe gives them a deductible on their premium. And they're coming in thinking, I'm young, I'm healthy, I feel fine. And then we're getting their vitals, and we find out that they have really high blood pressure, and they had no idea because routinely we're not checking our blood pressure, we're not checking our heart rate, our oxygen. And sometimes those things can show up and be something that we're able to help you modify and reduce that chance of having long term health problems. So, young person with high blood pressure that's left untreated, they may end up with things like enlarged heart failure down the road, heart attacks and strokes that maybe could have been prevented if they were able to address it a lot younger in life.
Okay, and that could include like diet, right?
Yes,
That's a big thing,
diets.
right?
Yes, diet's a big part of everything. So decreasing salt, trying to minimize carbohydrate use. Probably the most highest cause of diabetes is our love for breads and pastas.
Darn it.
And not just the sugary foods that you think of when it comes to diabetes,
Okay.
too.
Yeah. You drink diet though, don't you?
Sure.
I mean, everything in moderation, right? I mean, I think it's
And and as much as anything, we take for granted so many things. And when I get finished this morning here, I'm going to take my vehicle over to a repair shop for its 5,000 mile uh,
checkup.
checkup. Well, we don't do that on our bodies, our persons, because we think everything's just going to be fine and we don't need to worry about it. Well, that's not a good idea. So, one of the things you have listed is weight changes. That could be both increases in weight and decrease in weight,
Yes.
and they both need to be monitored, controlled, watched, talked
Yes.
about.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's plenty of us who might like to avoid the scale, and
Hmm.
um, then you might find that you get to the doctor's office and all of a sudden you step on the scale and you go, "Whoa, I put on maybe 30 pounds in over a year, and I maybe need to start looking at that and kind of changing things a little bit." Or all of a sudden you realize you've lost a lot of weight, you haven't changed anything that you're doing, and then we need to be concerned for some more serious issues like things like cancer.
Okay.
Yeah, rapid weight loss has some. It's probably much more concerning than an increase in weight, because weight loss is a indicator that something else might be wrong.
Yeah, and weight gain can also too. Things like thyroid disorders can cause that as well, and then just increased risk for things like diabetes and sleep apnea too. So other reasons to go to your doctor, and one one is for well child checks. So reasons to bring your kids to the doctor and stay up even on a well child check, even if you're going, my kids 9, 10, they're healthy. Do I really need to bring them to the doctor? For one, we're looking at things: are they up to date on their vaccinations? And the other thing is that we're able to screen for some underlying things like anxiety and depression
Hmm.
that often we don't realize that we're experiencing, because in our head we're going, this is a normal feeling to be feeling. This is how I'm supposed to feel, when maybe that's not exactly how we should be feeling, and we're actually struggling a lot more than we know. And just being
Now,
able to identify that and get treatment.
as adults, we sometimes get caught up into the day-to-day stuff, and it we might have some mild depression or problems, anxieties, and and we don't want to. I can get past this, so I'm not going to go see the doctor. That's not necessarily a good idea.
It's it's not exactly, because there's a lot of options. It doesn't have to be medication. It can
Hmm.
be counseling. But life, we have one life to live, and it's important to be feeling the best that you can to be able to enjoy it all.
Let's see, is the
Mentally and physically, right?
Yeah,
is the thing life's too short not to
not
feel
to feel
good?
good.
Is that the
Exactly.
way
You
that
got it.
goes? That's right. Life's too short not to feel good. Now,
um,
one of the
yes.
things you got listed on here is sleeping issues.
Yes. So, for a lot of people, you might go, I only sleep 4 hours every night. That's just what I do, and I've been doing it since I was little, and there's probably nothing I can do about it. That might be affecting you a lot more than you realize. There's a huge link of um, dementia issues with bad sleeping habits, weight gain too. And so, sleeping problems, it could be a sign of just generalized insomnia, which sometimes can be from just naturally our brains are just having trouble sleeping. But sometimes anxiety is keeping us awake too. And so, another reason to kind of look and say, why am I not sleeping? Why am I not able to fall asleep? Or, I'm sleeping a lot, but I'm waking up not well rested. And maybe you have sleep apnea.
Okay. Well, and snoring too. I mean, a lot of wives complain about their husbands that they're snorers. What signs what could we worry about if we had a bad snoring condition?
Yeah, so snoring in an adult, most of the time can be either some sinus issues or sleep apnea is also characterized by snoring too often. And say you have a kiddo who's snoring, probably the most common cause of that is they might have some enlarged tonsils that's obstructing their airway at
Hmm.
night and causing them to snore.
Okay, and so they'll have to go in and get their tonsils taken out, right?
Yes, oftentimes.
Okay.
So
Bring on the ice
sometimes
cream.
an easier
So,
fix than you might think, but
Yeah. Okay.
but once again, it's just one of those things where it's better to take charge of it, rather to be active rather than to be reacted upon. And so don't just let it pass as, oh well, this is just no big deal. Get it, take it, you know, be
yeah,
proactive.
yeah, because one of the more difficult things to treat is maybe someone who's been ignoring their health issues for a really, really long time, and now they're really, really sick, and we end up finding there's 3 or 4 different conditions that have developed over this time frame, and we're trying to get them all controlled at the same time, and so that's a lot more complicated for the patient and takes a little bit more close follow up for people, and they sometimes go, well, I never had to go to the doctor, and now I'm going to the doctor every week. This is
Yeah.
a little bit unusual,
Well, that
but
kind of goes back to, like you said, with the history. If you have a consistent
mm,
provider, at least you can put those puzzle pieces together, and it's not so much scattered all over the table. Like, well, you were dealing with this back in 2017. This is what you were dealing back mid-year. I think this is what we're heading to, right?
yeah, it's a lot easier to identify some chronic conditions that are developing versus jumping to an urgent care all over the place and just going in when when you feel like there's something happening. So family practice is a great way to have someone who's going to be able to help you with those urgent needs as well as those chronic conditions.
Okay.
Now, one of the items you have listed on here is preventive screenings.
Yes, so preventative screening, and I kind of wanted to go through some of the more common important ones
Okay.
for
Sure.
people because often people are going, what age do I need to do this? When can I stop? And some of the things that maybe we didn't realize we actually needed. So for women, the common things that we're thinking of is pap smears, cervical cancer screening. And when can I stop doing that or when do I have to start? Well, they've now said 21 across the board, and it's a little bit nicer because you can go anywhere between 3 to 5 years if you have a normal pap smear. And you can stop after 65, or if you ended up having surgery and no longer have those parts, you don't have to worry about it anymore either. The other is breast cancer screening. They have said every 1 to 2 years, starting at 50 by the United States Preventative Task Force, but the American Breast Association still says 40, which was kind of the long-standing number for a really long time. And you can stop potentially after 74, but if you have some more higher risk factors for it, they might say to go a little bit longer.
And it is
If
Breast
that,
Cancer Awareness
yeah,
Month too.
family history would also have a factor in how often we have those
Yeah,
kind of
so you might
screenings.
even need it earlier if you have a family history of any of these cancers, which is, again, a great reason to be established with a provider so they can help get that history, that family history from you. And say you had a family member who, say your dad had colon cancer, but he was only 40 when he got colon
Hmm.
cancer. They would probably say you should start having colonoscopies at 30, about 10 years younger than your father was diagnosed with this.
Okay. All right.
What other kind of screenings do we need to be watching for?
All right. So we have, I think one of the newer ones out there that not everyone's aware of is lung cancer screening if you have a history of smoking.
Okay.
And it's a little bit less prevalent with the smoking. I know currently because we've been able to figure out there's a lot of complications. But for a lot of people, they started smoking young, and at that time, there wasn't a lot of awareness of the long-term trouble that people can have. And we have lung cancer is one of the highest killers in the United States. And so I've now said about once every year, if you have a history of more than 30 pack year history of smoking, starting at the age of 54 and going up to the age of 74, that you should be getting a yearly CT scan of your lungs to look for signs of lung masses.
Well, what about people that work in environments they don't necessarily smoke, but say bartender doesn't smoke, but he works in a bar. He's worked there for 10 years. Should he be concerned about that?
Depending on environmental exposures, there's some higher risks. The tricky part is working with insurances because they
okay.
haven't came out with a great guideline of saying, we approve doing this test for this condition to screen for it. And so some of the tricky parts, probably the more complicated parts, is working with insurances on ordering tests and making sure they're covered because they all have great criteria to try to meet and
Okay.
keep track of.
Okay, but and that's something to consider too.
Yeah.
Of course. But
If the and really the insurance are the insurance companies becoming a little bit more comfortable with some of these screenings and tests
I
because
would
it really solves a lot of problems down the road.
A lot of them, most of them are, and as long as it is an approved guideline by the United States Preventative Task Force, they're generally usually covered if you have a wellness plan coverage. It depends again on the plan, so make sure you know your insurance plan too, so you're not surprised by any bills that might come your direction.
Yeah,
Because
gotcha.
there's a lot of little nuances with every plan, and there's not a great grocery cart for ordering medical
Okay.
supplies or testing or anything right now.
It varies with providers.
Okay, we're
right.
moving into the fall season of the year. And are there special precautions or things we need to be watching for because we're changing from a summertime
Like the flu shot.
like flu
Yes,
shots,
right?
for
flu shot's a
example?
big one.
Absolutely. Are there other factors we need to consider because it's moving into a colder climate and winter is it's
Winter
not
is
so-
coming.
Yeah.
it's not,
Quote a
it's
good
not
TV
supposed to
series.
rain or snow tonight, but it's going to come real soon. Benito has guaranteed me.
Yeah, so winter time, as we all know, is the time of the year where more people are getting sick and ill. So hand washing is really important. It should be important all year round, but
Right.
extra important right now, especially people who have kids at home, try to get them to do their good hand washing. If you have siblings, trying to make sure they try to keep their glasses and silverware as separate as they can. Easier said than done. Um, and just being aware that the people around you are maybe struggling with a cold and they might be able to spread that to you easily. So if you're sick, covering your cough so you don't get others ill.
Or stay home, right?
Yes.
If you can.
Yes, and vaccinating if you have a family member, especially who's immunocompromised and has maybe some pretty poor health at home, is going to help protect them too from getting ill because you're protecting yourself and preventing that potential spread to that family member too.
Okay. Yeah, we got about 40 seconds left in this hour.
Really?
Yes.
So
No.
what else would you? I mean, you got a long list,
Well,
and we've covered almost
Actually,
everything.
actually, if they want to contact your
Yeah,
office,
wait a
Yeah, I
minute.
was gonna say, if
We
you-
forgot about that, didn't we?
So if you want to get a hold of us, it's Dr. Tripp, Jeremy, and I in the office. It's 933-4400.
Say that again.
933-4400.
933-4400.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a website or a web
Yes,
address?
if you go to Tripp Family Medicine, if you Google that, you'll find our website. And our office is 1411 Fillmore Street.
Thank you
That's
so much for
across
coming
from
in
the post
today.
office.
Well, thanks for
Thanks,
having
Lauren.
me.
It's been great to have you.